Welcome to the 2024 North Dakota State Airport Payment Management System web-based interactive tool demonstration. In this video, I'll show a few of the quick tips on how to access some of the information, how to look up airport detail information from the project results, as well as some miscellaneous and other guideline information. I'll also spend a little bit more time explaining a couple of the new features to the web-based tool, including filtering out information according to pavement distress, type, age at the airport level, as well as the new structural component for commercial airports where PCRs were developed for runways that service more than 12,500 pound aircraft at the commercial service airports. To begin, the website is organized showing a few tabs or modules at the top right. The statewide summary information, which provides overall statistical information about the entire system of pavements for the airports that are included in the project. The next module, airport details, is where individual users would be able to go in and look at specific airport information, results, data, maps, photographs taken during the most recent inspection, as well as any recommendations for pavement repairs. There are a couple other modules that provide guidance and overview information, maintenance guidelines for maintenance activities on pavements that could be deployed, what it's meant to perform some of these routine maintenance type activities, as well as some of the FAA maintenance guidelines. And then there is a module that covers the actual visual inspection process and procedures, giving details about the types of pavement distress that might be observed, how they are rated, categorized, and incorporated in the visual inspections that were performed. Finally, there's a miscellaneous tab that provides definitions of acronyms and various things used throughout the interactive tool. To start, simply select statewide summary information if that's what you're interested in viewing. You'll notice that you immediately have some context legend along the left-hand side of the screen. This provides summary statistics based on pavement area, pavement age, some condition summary information, a needs analysis of the entire overall system of pavements in the airport pavement management system for North Dakota, as well as a copy of links to copies of PDF executive summaries that have been completed from the study. Simply select one of the pieces of information you'd like to look at. In this instance, I've selected area, so I'm interested in looking at statewide area summary information. Very similar, all three components, the age, area, and condition summaries provide similar types of information, or at least graphical representations of information. You'll notice this is an interactive tool. Hovering over this first chart shows the amount of square footage of the entire system based on surface type. You can see hovering over this portion, Portland cement concrete pavement actually comprises more than half of the pavements in the system. There's also, as you scroll down, you'll notice there's area summaries based on use, runway pavements, taxiways, aprons, runway pavements composing the majority of the pavement, more than the other three types of uses here. And then there's also some things broken up between the square footage in the commercial airports versus the general aviation airports, whether they're in the oil region or non-oil region, as well as whether it's part of the NIPIAS, the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, or non-NIPIAS. Finally, there's actually a distribution of pavement area by range of condition. This is showing that a significant portion of the pavement area in this system, more than 26 million square feet, is actually showing in the PCI range of 86 to 100, which is very good. In some areas you may see, you can look at a chart, you can look at a table that represents that same information, or you can view both. This is incorporated where applicable to allow for people viewing this information on smaller screen resolutions to still see the pertinent results from this. If I were to select any of these other drop-downs, we're starting to see an area broken out by differences between airport classification, for example. So you're going to see splits of information Similar types of information, but it's going to show the commercial service airports versus the rest of the general aviation airports in the system. So you're seeing similar distributions and similar splits by that. We also have oil region, and we also have funding eligibility, NIPIAS versus non-NIPIAS. And this is all pavement area broken out in the area summary. Broad level, entire system of data here represented in these results. If we were to go to the age summary, you're going to see similar types of information, but now we're looking at pavement ages, and these are area weighted ages. So as an example, I noted in the first example that Portland cement concrete surface pavements made up more than 50% of the entire pavement area in the system. These pavements have an area weighted PCI throughout the entire system of 16 years. So they're a little older than, let's say, that normal asphalt surface pavements or the normal asphalt overlaid on asphalt surface pavements. What you're going to see similar breakdowns based on the age, the area weighted age. This is by branch use. The overall age of the runway pavements in the entire system is 12 years. It shows it broken out between commercial and general aviation, as well as oil region, non-oil region, and then whether it's in the NIPIAS or not. Similar condition breakdown. You notice that when you look at the pavements that are the oldest, an area weighted age of 30 years or so, that their conditions are actually the worst in the system, which makes sense. The older the pavement, the less, the poorer the condition of the pavements. Similar information is broken out with splits for commercial and general aviation, as well as oil region and funding eligibility. Condition summary information, same thing. Now instead of area and age, we're going to be looking at splits of information showing representative PCI. So these are area weighted PCIs. So of the Portland cement concrete pavements, what's represented more than 50% of the pavements in the system and had an average area weighted age of 16 years, their area weighted average PCI combined is an 81. They are performing at the higher end of the condition spectrum when looking at other types of surfaces. Similar breakdowns by information in here by just individual airport. So here's an area weighted PCI of the entire pavement area that was included in the project for each airport. And mind you, these are area weighted PCIs. We also have that broken down just on the runway pavements at the airports. Similar breakdowns and distributions between airport classification, whether it's in the oil producing counties region or not, as well as whether it's part of the NIPIAS or not. The last tab here that's really pertinent is the annual funding needs by category of work. You look at 2025, the first year in our analysis, we did perform a 5-year capital improvement need analysis, and this is an unlimited funding needs. You can see overall, the entire system in this first year was still identified as needing 257, or roughly $258 million. And you will see that this is broken out by general aviation, by the entire system, whether it's a commercial service airport or not, as well as by funding eligibility in oil region. When you look at the funding scenarios, we actually tracked this going back to 2009, the first time we were involved in the update of this system. And you can see the condition trends over the last 4 cycles of pavement. This goes back quite a ways. So every 3 years, we've done a condition assessment, and this is tracking the performance of the overall system, which is actually maintained a 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, in those upper 70 ranges, plus or minus a few points. Very steady performance over the last decade or so. The other aspect here, this is the anticipated condition under the 3 scenarios of analysis needs. So we actually identified that if no money was used to maintain the pavements over the next 5 years, this PCI would drop from what is currently a 77 to a 69 for the entire system. So this is showing what will happen underneath the 3 analyzed funding scenarios, including what we analyzed as an anticipated annual funding scenario for the current pavements, which maintain the pavements relatively at their current condition. The final tab in this are copies of past statewide executive summary reports. Clicking on one of these links will allow you to download a PDF of the executive summary from the most recent project. This provides some of the similar information that is presented here in the website under the statewide summary statistics, but it also provides it in a visual form that can be taken, printed, and used for meetings or shared with others. That is the quick overview of the statewide summary information that's presented in this update. The next tab, which I'll spend some time talking about, is the airport details tab. Navigating through this tab is relatively straightforward. Initially, when you open up the tab, you will open up and see an entire state. We call this the network level. So each one of the dots represents an airport that's included in this project. Hovering over any one individual airport gives you area-weighted information for the entire airport at the network level. You can see past condition information here. 2018, the area-weighted PCI of, let's say, Ashley was an 93. In 2021, it dropped to a 79. In 2024, it dropped to a 74. The forecasted future condition, if no work is done, is also presented here. If I were to select any of the airports, this timeline is also interacted with the PCI map that we're showing here. So we can see what the future conditions are forecasted to look like and see that represented interactively within the map by dragging the timeline. It's key to remember which year you are selecting here and not to confuse on accident a current PCI with what is projected as a future PCI. One thing I would note, a new feature here, we have the ability to drag and resize these screens if you want to have more map or less, and more data or less map, or less data and more map. The map type in the upper left-hand corner is defaulted to the current PCI or condition, but there are other map types that are available here, such as airport classification, oil region, oil producing counties, whether it's part of the NIPIAS or not, and the age of the pavements at the individual airports. Another component, information on the right in the data portion, shows, this is currently showing PCI by year, or PC condition data, but there are other types of information identified here at the network level. For example, the airport classification, whether it's in the oil region or not, the total square footage of pavement, how many different unique pavement sections there were on there, and the area weighted age. So some statistical information and inventory information regarding the actual entire airport and all the pavements that are included for each airport is also shown here. There are a few other tabs here. Some of the documents, you really need to select an individual airport and go into there to see some of these other pieces of information. To select an individual airport, and I'll just use Bismarck as an example, you can either select it from the drop-down list on the left, or if you want to go in and actually look at the airport and all the individual pavements, you can double-click on the map. Now this is showing a representation of all the pavements that were inspected as part of this project at Bismarck Municipal Airport. Now the information and data you're seeing on the right-hand side pertain to individual pavement sections out there. This map is interactive. If you select a pavement on the map on the left, it will highlight the selection that you've made on the right. So for this portion of the Taxiway Charlie, we're showing past PCIs as well as future forecasted PCIs if nothing is done to the pavement to improve it or maintain its condition. There are some PCI by year charts showing historic inspections, when it was constructed. If you have a pavement that has multiple constructions over the years, you'll notice that there are construction dates as well as actual inspection dates, as well, along with the remaining forecasted future conditions if nothing is done. Pavement inventory information is shown here. Work history information is shown here. So the pavement work history, cross-section information for each pavement that's constructed out here is shown here in detail. And I would remind, this actually helps each NIPIAS airport fulfill part of the Grant Assurance 11 requirements by having this information readily available and reportable. Part of the inspection, The pavement distress quantities, types of distress, their severities that were collected during the inspection are shown here. Photographs taken during the inspection are shown here. So they're a good representation of what the actual pavement condition looked like and the types of distress that were observed during the inspection. They're all shown here. The recommended 5-year capital improvement plan here is shown here. This is an unlimited funding scenario. All of the information here presented is similar to past studies, and there's explanations for what's included, what's not included, the costs that were used in order to determine the overall project costs, the type of repair policies for fixing specific distress types are shown here. There are some pieces of information shown in here regarding preventive maintenance, whether a surface treatment is recommended or a resurfacing project is recommended. The results of all of these analyses are shown here in the various tabs shown here below. I would also add that at the section level, there are some additional map types that are available. If you want to see the pavement surfaces out of the 4 main surface types, asphalt, asphalt overlaid on asphalt, Portland cement concrete, or asphalt overlaid on Portland cement concrete, you can see a representation of that on the map by switching the map type. Another one is major or maintenance and rehabilitation, and this actually interacts with the recommended results of the unlimited funding analysis, showing you what pavements are identified to fall needing repair in the first year, as well as those that are identified to fall below acceptable levels identified and set by the Aeronautics Commission along with the project team. Those acceptable condition levels are actually shown in the analysis results on what is an acceptable level, how you find those levels. Another map type that is shown here, I'll get into summary charts. There are information pertaining to just this airport, some of the summary chart information similar to the statewide information. This is just presented for each individual airport. But there is also PCR information. And this is actually the information that I would like to spend a little bit more time because this is a new functionality within the interactive tool. We did perform PCR analyses of the runways at the commercial service airports that service larger than 12,500 pound aircraft, or were designed to service larger than 12,500 pound aircraft. At this airport, Bismarck, that means the 2 primary runways that were identified at the airport. What this is showing, according to the PCR results, is that roughly we look at an ACR-PCR ratio. PCR represents the pavement classification rating. That's the individual pavement's rating on what its structural ability to withstand the loading of the aircraft that are applied to it, according to how it's designed. ACR, aircraft classification, is provided for each individual aircraft according to the subgrade strength of the support conditions of that pavement. The ACR-PCR ratio of 1 or less means that the aircraft that have been analyzed and are using the pavement currently are less than the PCR of the pavement, and the pavement is structurally adequate to withstand a limited number of operations according to the FAA design procedure. If the ACR-PCR ratio is greater than 1, that means that the current critical aircraft or controlling aircraft that are operating on the pavement are actually overloading, or the pavement is not as structurally adequate in order to withstand an unlimited number of operations. However, the FAA recognizes that occasional infrequent use of some aircraft that might overload the pavement slightly is okay and has provided overload guidance. So as long as the ACR of an infrequently operating aircraft is no more than 10% of the PCR in the ACR-PCR ratio, it's acceptable to allow that aircraft to operate on an infrequent basis, occasional, once, twice a year, something infrequently, not regular. If it's greater than the overload guidance, we would actually see red show up. as meaning structurally inadequate. These results are linked to the map. One thing that is new with this feature now is that you have up here in the top a drop-down list of all of the aircraft that were analyzed in the traffic that was used, the major aircraft that was used for this analysis. So this top drop-down list of analyzed aircraft are aircraft that were observed to be seen in the actual traffic mix utilizing the facilities. The remaining FAA library of aircraft is here. So if you have a call or the airport operations or sponsor has a call from a pilot coming in with an aircraft that might be a larger aircraft than you think can be handled there, you can actually go in and see whether or not that specific aircraft would be allowed to operate on the airport just by simply clicking the aircraft. What you'll notice is the interactive ACR-PCR ratio now turned to red because this aircraft at this weight is showing that it would overload the pavements. You can adjust this weight to see if there's a lower operating weight that might be able to be accommodated on an infrequent basis. And at this point, this aircraft, the A340-500, if it operated at 705,000, 706,000 pounds and it was infrequent, at least on runway 1331, it could come in and be within overload guidance. If we were to drop that to 672,000 pounds incrementally, or you can even type in your own number here, 670,000 pounds. Whoop. You can see that it is structurally adequate at this reduced weight fuel load. The range of scale here is the lowest analyzed weight, which would be a taxiing weight, but it would be not a completely empty weight. The greatest taxiing weight would be the maximum takeoff weight of the aircraft, plus a little bit more fuel load analyzed that would be burnt off as it taxied out to the end of the runway. So it's a little bit higher than the maximum takeoff weight. All of these results are shown here. A summary of the results, information about PCR, ACR is provided here, including an overview of what this information means. But this is the new tool, the new functionality within the Airport Details tab that I specifically wanted to spend more time explaining and how to use it. Going back to condition and changing my map type back to PCI, you can see the airport conditions here. One more item here I would mention, down in the lower right-hand corner of the map, there are photographs. All of the photographs taken during the pavement inspection are geo-referenced and located along the airport on the pavements that they pertain to. Simply clicking on an individual photo will allow you to link to that on the right, bring it up, view it. Clicking back out in the middle of the map undoes your selection. The last thing I would say at the section level is there is a section filtering tool. I'm going to turn off the photographs now. And with the section filter tool, when you select it, it allows you to start looking at filtering out various things either by condition, age, use, surface type, and distress. If you were wanting to see, for example, all the pavements that had a PCI of 50 or less, you can type 50 in the box or drag it to 50, and it immediately interacts with the map showing those pavements that have a PCI less than 50. If you'd like to see the statistics and the actual detailed data, you can select the data tab here on the right, and it summarizes the types of information as well as the distresses that were observed in each one of these pavements. And this is of all 14 pavements out of 82 total on the airport that have a PCI of 50 or less. So this is summarized information. If you wanted to see what was actually applied here in the details, you can do that. Another tool, another example, you can compound these filters by selecting multiple things. I will switch this back to 100. Now I'm going to look at just pavements that have a PCI of 70 or higher. And I also would like to look at any asphalt surfaced pavements that do not have alligator cracking, or rutting. These are load-related distresses. And in this example, I do want to see those that have L&T cracking or block cracking, or possibly, let's say, weathering. I'm going to turn off a couple of these to get a few more candidates. So these are pavements that don't have any load-related distress, that have PCIs greater than 70 and have L&T cracking in one form, in one severity. These might be candidates where you would spend some additional monies that you might obtain for maintenance along the lines of crack sealing or something. So you can see that this tool actually is very powerful. It actually will allow you to really encapsulate which pavements fit certain criteria in the filtering aspect of that. If you want to clear all the filters and go back to the normal map, simply clear all the filters, leave the filter mode, and now we're back to the normal state of the tool where you have the map on one side, the data on the other. That's a little bit more indication on how to use the section filtering tool. So with this update in 2024, we have a newer, more robust section filtering tool, and we have a very dynamic and impactful way of looking at the structural component of the PCR information that was determined as part of this project with the new ACR-PCR ratio and the available aircraft category. That's a summary of the airport details. The remaining modules within this tool are similar to all the previous tools, where you have routine maintenance guidelines available here. You have some FAA maintenance guidelines according to some of the advisory circular links to go to those and read what the FAA considers proper maintenance techniques on pavements. You also have, by clicking pavement inspection, an overview of the PCI inspection procedure, how the documents that drive and formulate the process for doing the PCI inspection. There's information on various distress types. For example, asphalt. If I were to click alligator, here are some example photographs of alligator cracking, along with the criteria that are used to determine severities when we're doing the inspection. There is some cause of these distress types. So typically alligator cracking is noted as a load-related distress by frequent overloading in the wheel path or by traffic or other types of vehicle activity that overloads the surface of the pavement. There are also causes for Portland cement concrete types of distress, but this is really meant as background information on the pavement inspection procedure itself. Finally, there's a miscellaneous tab that provides definitions, acronyms for the various things that you'll see throughout the interactive tool. It also provides some general information about the tool with contact information on who to reach out to if you have any questions.